So conference this week is we're continuing our studies of the koshas with our friend Iyengar, and we're studying light on life. We are still in the second chapter, finishing up the first kosha, which is what? Anamaya kosha, which is the physical body entering the journey inward through the physical body, and our yoga practice through our asana practice then. And Iyengar gives some really beautiful, I'm referring to him as jewels this week, ways for us to actually refine our asana practice and things that we talk about all the time, but sometimes, hearing it from a different teacher or hearing something that you know but a different way kind of resonates with people. So I think the way he described refining the pose is really beautiful. So I want to go over a couple of those this week with everybody. And also keeping in mind what we studied earlier in the semester, which is Purusha and Prakriti being what? What's Purusha? Yeah, so earth, nature, our changing selves can be our bodies, right? And then what's Prakriti? Heaven, sky, or we also would translate that as the Atman, the soul. So yoga is constantly trying to yoke those two and bring them together. So we're in the body and yet we're also in the sort of the essence of who we are as well. So the first of his tips on how to refine our Anamaya kosha, our asanas, is awareness every pore of the skin has to become the eye. What's that mean?
Send your awareness into all your, everywhere.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Extend your awareness into all of your being. And a lot of times we think externally, so we're constantly trying to figure these things out from an external perspective. But yoga, saying that the eyes are in every pore, means we're going to really try to understand and relate to that through an internal perspective. So I just use the example to say that, like in Ashtanga, we don't use mirrors. You'll never go to an Ashtanga yoga school and have mirrors where we're looking and the teacher telling you, look in the mirror and, figure this out or figure that out. Really what we do here is ask you to look within and try to find your alignment, your harmony, your adjustments. And then of course we have teachers giving you hands-on adjustments, which is another way to kind of help you connect to something more internal. The next jewel Iyengar goes over is dynamic extension from the core of your being. So what's that? We talk about that all the time. It is, Adrian, what's that? Dynamic extension from the core of your being. So it's the bandhas, right? It's pulling in through the center, and then instead of just locking and being just strong in the center, we want to reach it out into the very edges of our body. So the quote I was reading by Iyengar was, when you extend and expand, you are not only stretching to you are stretching from. So instead of, he gave the example, like in a lot of other things we do, it's like stretch to your toes, right? But in Ashtanga, we don't stretch to our toes, we stretch from our core to our toes in everything that we do. I love the way he said it. It's so simple, but it helps what I'm constantly trying to say to you guys about your core strength and moving into the edges. It gives you that place of origin, where it's going to originate from, and move into those. So today, throughout your practice, throughout the asana sequence, I'm going to constantly remind you guys with this terminology he used, is to extend from, and keep thinking of your bandhas for that. And then the next one would be relaxation. In every pose there should be repose. What's that one? Very much about the Ashtanga practice. Yeah. So we find our sukham, we find our gentleness, our softness, our at ease, not too much effort. So we put some effort into it, which is the sthira, right? But we want to combine that with effortless, effort with effortless together. And it's not always the case in some of the other things we might do physically, but in this one, for sure, we don't want to be just pushing and effort. How would me, for example, as your teacher, know if you guys are, the balance is off? If you're too much effort, what's the one way that I know it for sure? The breath, right? So if you guys are, or if I'm next to someone and they're like, right, then I know that there's too much effort, you know. So really for all of us, the breath is very diagnostic. So we want you to be the looking bird in your own practice and constantly checking in with your breath. And that's one of the reasons it's audible. It's a powerful breath. It moves the prana, but it's also how we are constantly checking in to make sure we have the right amount of effort and the right amount of no effort. Effortlessness combined in the yoga practice. What's the second way that I know if you guys are way too much in effort? The face. See, you're paying attention.
You know what? It's all coming back to me because she did talk about this yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
See? So too much effort in the face, where you're making goofy, silly faces and you don't even know it because we don't have mirrors, is too much effort, right? So one of the examples my teacher Tim Miller uses as the Nataraj, the idea of Shiva's dance. And in the dance of creation and destruction, through that whole dance of this powerful creation and destruction, Shiva's face is like this. Actually, that was a Shelley Washington face, but the idea is that eventually you guys can master a pose that was very challenging for you. I'm just going to say headstand, because no one really knows how goofy their face might be looking in headstand, right? But you're in headstand sometimes, you don't realize that you're so trying to get your balance and get this thing right that you're making these strange contortions on your face. But all of a sudden one day you find your balance, you might sway a little bit, but your muscles come into play the way you need them to, and you feel solid. And I always say that the thing for me, if you've mastered a pose, like headstand for example, you can recite your favorite poetry, right, while you're doing headstand. So have that Shiva face is sort of what we're looking for. Now I haven't said this yet, but on Sunday when we were doing conference, I said all of these jewels that Iyengar gave us for our asana practice are also like tips for life, right? So that one's such a great one, that in everything in life, right, you want to come into it like full on, like with effort and power and conviction and confidence. But at the same time, you don't want overkill. You want to also come into things and be that person that's light in your way of being and funny and almost silly. And you know, we always want that combination in the different things that we do in our life, whether it's job or relationship, aspects of relationship, we want to bring that. So the next one is very similar in what I just said, is lightness. Think light and feel light. So very much a part of the Ashtanga practice. For me, one of the things I love most about my practice is on a day where I'm really feeling good, I feel like I'm strong, but I feel like I'm so light. You know, and if you were practicing next to me, hopefully as I'm jumping back or forward, I actually sound light. But that doesn't come from me losing weight and being skinny, little Ashtangi. It comes from me being a powerful Ashtangi. I always compare it to Bruce Lee. The way he moved was so beautiful. He's one of the most powerful men, but so smooth and light in his way of being. And that's really what we're looking for. Again, from that core strength, we find how we can float and do more of that softness. Same in life, you know, the same thing I said, how much we want to really in our lives be strong in our way of being and also light in our way of being. The next jewel is balance, evenness and harmony. What is that? Brian, what's that? I haven't teased you in a while. Balance, evenness, and harmony is so much about finding our balance, our equilibrium and everything. So in yoga, we always do the right side and then we do the left side. Even if I'm going to come over and adjust you, it would be bad for me to adjust Adrienne on her right side, walk away and get busy and not adjust her on the left side. It's like, oh, she'll be unbalanced the rest of the day. Right? But obviously if I'm stretching one side for her, I want to make sure I stretch the other. It's the same for you. But again, the cool thing with yoga is we're constantly going into that internal perspective, so you guys start to find where there may be some imbalances that you need to work. I love Ashtanga, again, is so diagnostic, because maybe you remember the first time you were going to do Jana Shirshasana and you had one knee that went really way down on the right and it felt so good, and then that other side, when you did it here, this knee is kind of moving forward, maybe a little bit higher, and you notice when you went like this, your torso torqued to the side. What does that mean? It means you're a little bit out of balance. It means one hip is tighter than the other, and we don't always see it in the hips. Sometimes we see the way the torso doesn't glide over the leg perfectly, then it pulls off to the side. So yoga's diagnostic. You might not know that you had one hip that was tighter than the other if you're just sitting in chairs and running and doing different things. All of a sudden you start doing these hip openers and you realize where you have more flexibility and where you need to work to create that balance, that stability. Same in our life as well. You know, we're going to do the Ayurvedic workshop today, which is on the doshas. There's the Pitta, Kapha, and Vata. The idea is to be healthy. It's a form of medicine, but also it's a form of looking at our mental health. And in order for us to be healthy, what we're looking for is those three things to be balanced, right? So it's the same. We start to look in our yoga practice to find how we're going to balance. So in the workshop today, I'm going to tell everyone that this is primarily, if you talk to an Ayurvedic practitioner, Ashtanga is a Pitta practice, right? Definitely, Pittas are kind of drawn to whatever. But within the practice itself, we can bring balance, so it's not just a Pitta practice for us. I can bring more Kapha to this practice if I need to, more Vata, and balance that out while I'm on my mat. Lastly, because I've run out of time, your last jewel is find comfort even in discomfort. Scott, what do you think that means?
Even if you have a challenging pose and it's hard for you, that you can just embrace that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of settle into things like when you're, it's also funny, you know, Ashtanga, there's a joke it's a Tim Miller joke that if you see people doing a Mysore practice and sometimes they would skip poses. Because why? Because they're not comfortable. They're hard, right? Like, let's just skip Ujjayi for heaven's sakes. And Tim would be like, this is not top 40, right? So in Ashtanga, you don't get to choose the ones you like and the ones you don't like. And why would we dislike a pose? A, we're maybe not good at it, or B, it's just not comfortable. But the idea is you have to still do the pose and sit with that discomfort. You know, in life, I was given the example this week that actually I'll use Alessandra as an example. She's probably one of my favorite parents. She's a fabulous yoga teacher and she's a fabulous mom. And the thing I've seen with her raising her kids all these years is she can be a tough mom when she needs to. And I see her with her kids in the way sometimes she holds a space for them to be challenged. You know, I think sometimes as parents, I see parents that don't want their kids to have any problems. They don't want them to have to suffer. And, you know, none of us would want that. But I think sometimes good parenting is like just allowing our kids to face challenges and work through them, you know. As teachers, you know, Debbie's nodding her head working with kids now. Like, the best thing you can do is provide a safe space for them and to give them the confidence and love and support to face challenges in your life. So that's something we kind of do on our mat. You know, we don't always get to do the things that are fun and that we love. We got to do those hard poses and just sit with that, be with it, be patient, you know. That was one of the jewels I didn't go over, but Patabi Joyce and Iyengar both were firm believers in good progress is slow progress. So we learn patience here. We learn that we're not good at everything, and that's okay to just embrace it and take your time getting better or stronger at something.